honest, with the Philadelphia Eagles defeating the Kansas City cheating Chiefs 40-22, and the score does not even indicate how one-sided this game was from the onset. So
if you're a Chiefs fan, it's a tough look for you right now.
that black magic that they've been participating in all year, that don't work in the voodoo capital of the world. And oh my God, and that warms my heart. Like, to see their fans in misery. Like, I literally posted to my story, I wanted to see power and light. I seen them post before the game, like, and I never saw a post for the rest of the night.
I will say a lot of America, from a woman's perspective, are so happy that the Eagles won for Jalen Hurts. I'll include myself. Listen, I was captivated by that man on TV. I hear Tom Brady say something about the Falcons. I said, now why? I was like, why are we catching straight? Like,
yeah, he's a part of the exciting whites back there with Reed Blankenship and all them, man. Yeah.
And everybody was like, yay, it's whites. And I'm like, yay. We haven't talked, so I don't know your opinions on the halftime show.
Why you trolling like ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably a minor.
Oh, I got a lot of strong opinions. Welcome to another episode of the Going with the Flow podcast. I am your host, Jordan Flowers, aka J Flow. To some people, I'm just affectionately known as Flow, and I am joined by the newest member of our podcast team, the multi-talented pride of both Athens and Atlanta, Miss Georgia Chambers. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jordan?
You know what? It was wonderful. It was a wonderful time. I'm coming off an amazing high. Obviously, y'all know I'm a Chief hater. If you tuned into this channel for a couple years, you know that's something that I've been praying on their downfall for a long time. So I'm doing well. I can't complain.
Did you check on Andrew? Or did you rub it in? Did you check it?
He. You know what? I didn't get to rub it in as much. He wasn't very defensive as he usually is. But I imagine it's a couple friends that I know that lost like a couple $1,000s on that, and we gonna give them that gambling hotline number for sure.
I feel like the people that were most upset about that game were the ones that just had so much faith in the Chiefs, and they bet a lot of money, and they lost a lot of money yesterday.
And oh my God, and that warms my heart. Like, to see their fans in misery. Like, I literally posted to my story, I wanted to see power and light, because everybody goes to power and light. If you familiar with power and light in Kansas City, that's where everybody usually goes for like the big game days, outdoor kind of like event type of thing on a big screen. And it was packed. And I remember all my KC like homies that was out there that was just watching the game. I seen them post before the game, like, and I never saw a post for the rest of the night. Like, that was it.
Yeah. I saw something on social media, and it was like, I wish they had, like, it might have been there, but it was like a ghost town. Nobody was there. Everybody had left. And it was just like, yeah, when the score looks like it did in the Super Bowl, I don't blame them. They went home to drink themselves into oblivion, I guess.
They was there doing it, and they went back to home to finish whatever handle they had in the crib. But I understand. But again, that makes me so happy. But let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. So this is our Super Bowl recap. And just coming off of we're recording on some Monday, but coming off of last night, it was a more than a non-competitive, Super Bowl, and really one of the most non-competitive in recent history, to be honest, with the Philadelphia Eagles defeating the Kansas City cheating Chiefs 40-22, and the score does not even indicate how one-sided this game was from the onset. So before we dissect like the whole game, what were your like initial reactions to the early onslaught from the Eagles?
Well, I was just so excited. I was rooting for the Eagles going into it. And it's not just because, a lot of people were like, we've seen the Chiefs do what they do. They were going for a three-peat, which no team had ever done in Super Bowl history. So that was part of it. But I wasn't at the Chiefs game this past Falcons season, but I was at the Eagles game in Philadelphia for Monday Night Football. And I just remember the atmosphere and the fan base. And I'm like, this is a team that, like, the fan base loves their team. Like, Philly eats, breathes, sleeps like Eagles. So it's just like to see that fan base. That's not something I had necessarily seen in Atlanta. So I was like, wow, this is a team I would root for. So just to see them play in prime time, Saquon, Jalen Hurts, like the Philly dogs, like they're, being a Georgia, that's my alma mater.
Yeah, so I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Phillies defense is basically just taking a script from Georgia's defense. You know, you got Alabama's
Yeah,
offense, Georgia's defense. Why don't you put them together? Like they're on to something good. So, you know, there's many reasons as to why I wanted Philly to win, but I feel like you just saw all the parts come together in that game, and I feel like Jalen Hurts was saying after the game, like this there you were seeing the culmination of everything come together, but that was a lot. It started in training camp. It's just like there were a lot of things that just kind of came together, and it is testament of their hard work. So I just feel like it all paid off, and you can't help but feel great for Jalen Hurts because he had his lock screen of him walking in the confetti when they had lost to the Chiefs before. So it's just like he had that
right.
chip on his shoulder, and he came in, and not only did they win, like you said, like score might not necessarily reflect, but they dominated. So it's just
Early.
if you're an Eagles fan, fly Eagles fly, you're feeling great. But yeah, if you're a Chiefs fan, it's a tough look for you right now.
Oh, it's bad, and I'm about to pour a little bit of salt in the wound. That was great. Oh my god. Oh, I was so excited from the start. To see Patrick Mahomes struggle like that was just wonderful. He couldn't even get a first down. I don't think they passed the 50-yard line in the first half.
Yeah,
Oh, it was just bad from the onset. I think also too is like one thing you'll see if you're just a sports fan is like when teams get rolling, like, there's just nothing that you can really do to stop them, and obviously, this Chief team had a lot of holes, right? We seen Kelsey kind of fall off a cliff with, his performance. He wasn't doing as well, and obviously, he's slowing down, and we even, questioning should he retire, right? So, you had that in the equation, obviously, with Rashee Rice is out, and then you got some decent pieces at receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, but nothing, like, worthy, and that line was so bad last night. It was atrociously bad. Now, granted, the Philadelphia defense is really good, led by Jalen Carter. You got Darius Slay over there, Nolan Smith. Like they got some dogs over there, but that
my
line
Philly
was
dogs.
like, yeah, it was bad. It was bad, and I thought that initially I was like, okay, well, it was about 17-0, right? I'm like, dang, like if they score before halftime and 17-7, I'm like, oh, this is gonna get really, really bad. And obviously then Patrick had that
Right.
interception, but yeah, that looked tough from the beginning. And I think everybody collectively as a fan, because even if you like scrolling on Twitter, you're like, dang, when are the Chiefs gonna do their little voodoo magic? And there was a funny tweet
Right.
on there was like that black magic that they've been participating in all year, that don't work in the voodoo capital of the world, right? They
Right.
ain't got nothing going on
I feel
down
like
there.
well,
But
because everybody that goes to show you can't count out the Chiefs. Like there was never a
mhm,
moment, especially I would say by the fourth quarter, obviously you're like, okay, the nail's kind of in the coffin. But I'm pretty
mhm,
sure it had to be somewhere in the first half. I hear Tom Brady say something about the Falcons. I said, "Now why?" I was like, "Why are we catching strays?" Like, talk about, "Oh, well, you never know." Like the Falcons. I text my work group chat. I was like, and my boss was like, "Now, come on, Brady. Like, you did not have to bring them into this conversation because we all know what happened to the Falcons in the
mhm,
Super Bowl. You can never count a team out." But that was funny to me because it's just like, okay, you don't have to rub salt in the Falcons fans' wounds right now because we did not deserve to catch that stray. But that made me laugh because I caught that and I was like, did I just hear him correctly? Like, but yeah, I mean, so you couldn't necessarily count the Chiefs out, but they stayed consistent, dominant defense, and Jalen Hurts was cooking. So it's just like all of the part. And I will say they did. I was expecting Saquon to have a better game. He still had a good game, but it was
mhm.
just like I feel like Jalen was the unapologetical like MVP. Like you just knew when it ended, we're like Jalen Hurts is the MVP. I wanted to see Saquon have an even better game on the ground like he's had all season long, but still, I mean, he had a good game. And then Coop getting the like intercepting Patrick Mahomes on his birthday. Like there were so many storylines within the game. That was just like he's him. I would be like, you can't tell me
Yeah,
nothing. We won a Super Bowl. It's my birthday, and I intercepted Patrick Mahomes. I'd
man,
be
pick
like,
six
yeah,
too. Yeah, he's
yeah.
a part of the exciting whites back there with Reed Blankenship and all them, man. And yeah,
I knew that was coming.
uh, yeah, the
Yeah,
exciting whites back
I
there.
was at a Super Bowl party, and
Uh,
everybody was like, "Yay, exciting whites!" And I'm like, "Yay!" I was like, "Okay, all right, guys, all right."
that's a great nickname. They might as well just embrace it. They might as well just embrace it. But wasn't gonna say, oh. You know what a crazy stat was, as we, move on, but I seen a stat of, like, Devontae Smith being the first Alabama player drafted to be like, to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Is that not crazy with how much, like, talent Alabama's produced? Like, that was nuts to
Well,
me.
that was I was talking to Olivia about that because I'm in Huntsville right now, and she was just talking
Mhm.
about all these crazy stats just with Devontae and what he's been able to accomplish just in his career. And it's just so fascinating to like look at those because yeah, you think it's like under Nick Saban, he's had all these great superstars. So to really think about that is wild. Like you would think that he would be one of many, not the first.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, like, then going back to not to pour salt in the wound, but did Julio Jones not score in the for the Falcons? Like, in that bowl? I'm trying to think. Oh,
No.
man. Like, cause I was thinking about players that could have possibly scored that was from that Alabama team. I'm thinking of, like, Mark Ingram and, all those kind of
Yeah.
players, and I was like, "Yo, Julio went to Bama." I'm like, I didn't see how he wouldn't have scored, but that yeah, that's a crazy, crazy stat, but let's move on. Jalen Hurts end up winning the MVP. He had a really, really good game. Besides a few bad passes, I know the underthrow with the interception, but other than that, it was just a really good, solid performance from Jalen Hurts. And again, some of the conversation now is with him being an MVP in the Super Bowl and him having that first ring. He's in the likes of the Burrows and the Allens and Lamars who don't even have a chip, but they're all in that young core, right, of quarterbacks. So where's the appropriate place to kind of put Hurts in that kind of conversation? Where do you have him amongst the QBs that I just mentioned?
Well, I feel like once you lead your team to a Super Bowl win and you're named the
Mhm.
MVP, that speaks for itself, right? Like, I feel like there's not really much left for him to prove to be in that conversation. I probably would have put him in that conversation of great quarterbacks before this. And, I feel like a lot of people go to his college career and, look at his time at Alabama and then finishing at Oklahoma. And, people may have had different opinions on him, but I really think that he took off in the league. And it's just like obviously
Mhm.
it's testament to because each team will have their adversity, but they had their ups and downs this season. And especially that stretch of like when the Falcons beat them on Monday Night Football, everybody's like, huh, like are the Eagles as good as people thought they were? And so there was like a lot of doubt and speculation, I feel like all season. So for him to really rally his team and lead them to a Super Bowl win, I feel like it's like what else do you have to prove? And I
Mhm.
feel like too, it just takes you to like the end. I saw on Twitter it was like a special moment when he had the Lombardi Trophy and he was just sitting there like with his cigar and he was just like sitting. I can't wait to see those pictures by the way because I know they're going to be
Oh,
fire.
they're gonna be
But
fire.
it was just like it was like that self reflection moment, and you can probably speak to this being an athlete yourself and a former quarterback. But it's just like the moment that it's like you're riding that adrenaline all season long, and it's kind of like this is
Mhm.
what it was for. You're just having that moment away from the media, away from the team, just by yourself in that hallway, looking down, being like, "This is like we did it." Like, how do you
Right.
feel? Like, obviously, okay, yeah, your career took you a different direction, but like, what emotions do you feel like were going through his head at that time?
Particularly with him, I think he has a very unique story, and I think again, it's the one thing that kind of unites us in terms of like, with America just being, football is America's, sport, right? I mean, obviously, baseball is America's pastime, but I think you get these storylines like you've been talking about, and Jalen Hurts is the epitome of a storyline that we can all relate to. That person that got a chip on their shoulder, that person that has been doubted, the person that, going back to the national championship a few years back when Tua was the one that threw that touchdown. I thought it was also like poetic that Tua threw the touchdown to Devontae Smith. And it almost looked similar to that touchdown that Jalen Hurts ended up throwing to Devontae Smith. And if you remember the
Yeah,
storyline, that was Jalen Hurts got benched in that game. And so it was so
yeah,
much poetry in that, obviously with his pastoral lines that he comes to the podium with in his Bible verses. I think people can relate to that too. But I think overall, I think Jalen Hurts in that moment, you're just kind of taking in like, dang, like I really did this. It was a lot of people, it was a lot of naysayers out there that said I wouldn't be able to lead a team or be able to put my team in a position to even get here, right? Or people saying that we're winning despite of me or I'm not doing enough. I'm being carried, right? And although I don't think
Right.
he's asked to do the things that a Burrow and a Allen and Lamar, I think those guys are a little bit more talented than him. I think what Jalen does really well, he does really well, and he does his job. And I think in that moment, it's like, yo, all the sacrifices, all the doubt, really, really came to this moment, this moment of just like, yo, it's like F y'all, this is what I work for. And it's kind of like a sigh
Yeah.
of relief too. It's a sigh of relief. It's a sense of validation for yourself. So I know he felt really, really good in that moment. And like he said in his words, man, I had a purpose before y'all had an opinion. We'll all have an opinion on him.
Yes.
I'll have one
Right.
too. And he fulfilled his purpose. So I really can't hate on him. I mean, it was a really, really good game from him overall.
And I'll say too, coming from a woman's perspective. So I was at a Super Bowl party, and there was a handful of women there that every time Jalen Hurts was shown on the TV,
Oh
they would
yeah.
start cheering. And I will say these women might not have had much knowledge on sports, but I will say a lot of America, from a woman's perspective, are so happy that the Eagles won for Jalen Hurts. But we got to give Bry, his fiance, a shout out because she was going to have her moment. So all these women across the world could
So
see that he is happily engaged. That
they don't
that
care.
crushed a little. That I'll include myself. Listen, I was captivated by that man on TV, and I'm a sports reporter. So I was like, listen, Bry had her moment. She was just like,
Right.
we were laughing though because after the kiss, he was looking up like, "What you looking at, Jalen? Like, what you?" She wanted another kiss, and he was like, I was like, what you searching for? But no, that was a special moment. I feel like they got to share
That's dope.
after, that on the field. And I mean, those are things you love to see. But yeah, a lot of women were probably hurting because in their head that's they pictured themselves there. So they were like, why is this woman kissing my man? But no, I love that for
Yeah.
them.
Oh my God, especially on Twitter, man. It was a lot of devastating people, the woman demographic that was grieving in real time that that wasn't them. But no, I think that's actually cool though too. Like it's getting even the woman audience into it, regardless of like the motive behind it or anything.
Right.
It's still
They
getting
were
eyes on
tapped.
it, right? Yeah, they
Because it
tapped
was like
in,
you said,
man.
also like there's some women that will be tapped in for the commercials or the halftime
Hmm.
show. Even guys that might not necessarily love football. Like there's a lot of different reasons, and like people will watch the Super Bowl, but going to the commercials, I thought they were mid. There was like the Nike commercial that I really liked.
Right, the
The
one that
Nike
yeah.
commercial. There was, why is his name escaping me? Texas, Matthew McConaughey. He was in a
Oh
ton
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
commercials. One that I feel
Yeah, he
like
got
I
like a
liked, but I don't know. Like this year, I'm like they weren't funny. I didn't really. I don't know. I wasn't really like, oh my gosh, the commercials are so good. Like Doritos, did they
yeah.
had one commercial, but it wasn't funny. Like Doritos is usually good. I didn't see one Bud Light commercial. If I missed it, I missed it. But I don't know. What did you think? I just thought they were mid.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, I think that's been a thing for a long time now. Like, I think I gave up on Super Bowl commercials a long time ago. Like, I don't think people necessarily tuning into them now. Like, just in terms of like, I think it's much more of like to be like send a message, which I'm all for if it's the right message, right? I think much more.
Yeah,
It's
I
much more
agree.
like bulletin. Yeah, it's not lighthearted really, or if it is lighthearted, I think maybe we just in a different space in society where it's like it is nothing that's really entertaining us like it used to, like the
Because you have TikTok
corny or cheesy things.
nowadays, so
Yeah,
it's like
Y-
I have TikTok
yeah,
and I have everything at my fingertips in terms of
mhm.
like there's a lot of different ways you can get ads nowadays. So maybe I don't know, people rely less on because that's a ton of money that you have to pay to get a Super Bowl commercial. So they're like, why would I spend this money when I can just do TikTok or other stuff like that? But yeah, I was disappointed. And then we haven't talked, so I don't know your opinions on the halftime show.
Oh,
I thought
I got a
it
lot of
was
strong opinions. How do you, okay? Let's start there. Let's go there. So people tuned into the halftime show for the commercials, some for the game, and some to see Drake's funeral with the Kendrick performance at halftime,
right.
right? So, I before I go on my little
Yes.
rant about it, w- like let's give it a grade for you. What grade are you giving Kendrick Lamar's performance for halftime show?
I would rate it better than Rihanna's.
Oh, that's still not a
I
grade. Are we
wouldn't say,
giving it? What you giving it?
can I grade it in terms of like Beyonce's here? The bar is here. Beyonce is here.
Okay.
He was like He was like here, and then like Rihanna's like
Like a
here. So
B?
I would give that. So yeah, I would say a B because,
Okay.
but I get it. Like if you don't get it, like perfect example. I was talking to somebody who's like, my dad didn't understand it. So
Mhm,
if the things are going over your head, you're going to think that was a very mediocre performance. You have
mhm,
to understand why Serena being out there was iconic. You have to
right,
understand what, like, who he's even talking about. Because some older people probably even know like he's dissing Drake. So I feel like there's a lot
right.
of things that once you know, and even knowing like, oh, he swept at the Grammys. Like this is just pouring salt and rubbing salt into the wound. So and also he's a lyricist though. So that's also difficult when you're like performing at a Super Bowl. You really just got to listen because he's the type of artist I feel like you really got to listen to what he's saying.
Mhm,
So, but I mean in terms of like I don't know, and I feel like he had a deeper message within his Super Bowl performance. So I feel like in
right.
terms of I don't know, like would I necessarily say like that was the most captivating performance? No, but like when the party I was at, everybody's singing along, like of course everybody said A minor. That's a given. Like everybody's screaming A minor. Is
Yeah.
Drake suing? Is that for real? So who's he suing? Is he suing YouTube TV
Uh,
or who's he suing?
nah, he got
Apple
all
Music?
types of lawsuits. UMG, yeah, I think he tried to go after the
He's
NFL, which is
I
a bad
mean,
idea. Yeah, I
game
don't think
over, as Kendrick said at the end of his hap listen, at the end of the day, like, I feel like too, Kendrick gonna sleep great at night. He just won
Mhm,
how many Grammys and performed a halftime show, so for people I don't know, people were bashing, "That was terrible, that was mid, da, da, da." I think it
right.
was fine. I was entertained, and I thought I loved seeing Serena on stage. I loved I mean, and Trump was there, so doing all that in front of a Trump was a, like, indirect
Yeah, shot.
like,
Yeah,
what yeah. So I feel like there
rightfully
were a lot
so.
of moments I was like, "This was thought out," so I respected it. Would I say it's the best? No, but I wasn't mad at it. People were getting I was
Nah,
like,
I
I
was a
don't know.
part of people.
Let's hear your
I was a part
You
of
didn't like
people.
it?
No, I didn't enjoy it, and let's just break it down. Let me break it down 2 ways. One, from the symbolism in it, yes, I did thoroughly enjoy it. From the way that the American flag was divided to symbolize the divisive nature of like American society today. I think that was a dope symbolism. Uncle Sam with Samuel L. Jackson, I thought that was dope as well. There's other like little tidbits in there, and I think on a cultural level, in terms of Black importance, I think Kendrick really did orchestrate something really good in that message. Now to the other side of that, I don't want to see that in the Super Bowl. I would rather see that elsewhere. And from me, one, let's just go ahead and say, let's get it out the way. I am biased because I'm a Drake fan, and you sending shots at the guy OVOXO. I'm not gonna be a big fan of that. I ain't
I
appreciate
love
how
Drake.
Kendrick was going at me.
I do too.
Nah, stay on that side. Nah, you can't say
No,
nah.
I
It's
I
real
was at his
divisive right
concert. No,
now.
I have
Nah,
more
it's
Drake on
real
my phone than
divisive.
Kendrick. I
That's
have more
and
Drake
that's
on my
my
phone than
point.
Kendrick.
That's my point though. Is like now people were acting like what brought like what this beef brought out was like now people were taking shots at Drake. Whatever, cool. I'm not tripping about that. But now people were acting like Drake was never good. Like Drake wasn't really that Kendrick was way
I
better than
was
Drake.
doing
No, y'all, and I'm telling you, like it got to that point. Like oh, I told y'all how bad Drake. You should have seen social. It was really really bad.
But
But
those are
it's
bandwagon haters.
bad.
You gotta relate it to the way I look at it as when you have 2 besties fighting,
Mhm.
are you gonna pick a bestie? No, you're gonna be
Maybe.
Switzerland, and
Nah,
you're gonna let him
I might
figure it
pick
out.
one.
I'm
I
gonna let
might
him
pick
figure it
one.
out, and I'm gonna continue to be cool with both of them. Some people might say it's fake of me, but listen, just
Yeah.
because I'm singing along to one songs doesn't mean I'm not also literally I was singing over in the car earlier today for Drake. So like I can support both of my besties and let them figure it out, and I'm going to be here waiting for that to happen and continue to support them both. It's not my beef,
That's not
it's their
most
beef.
people. You know what? And you are
Well,
right. And that's a very logical way of going about it. We are not logical beings. If you are a stan of somebody, which I'm not a fan of Kendrick at all. So it's like it's very, very different. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Do I think he made a big hit? Yes. Do I think You know what also what was a problem of mine? He didn't even perform some of his best songs. Like Money Trees wasn't in it. He really didn't perform anything from Good Kid,
He
Mad
could have brought
City.
more people out too. People were like, "Why didn't
Yeah.
he have more people come out?"
And SZA saved him. Shout out to SZA, man, with a wonderful
Yeah,
performance by SZA. A wonderful
she's a
performance by
queen.
SZA, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought it was very, very mediocre. I'm not saying it was bad. I thought it was mediocre. I think for me, it was just the cap on the beef. And I feel as though with him getting like that stage right there, he could have gained much more fans traction. Now, were people tuning in to hear a lot like us? Yes. But they knew that was coming regardless. People knew that was coming. Captivate them with some of those old hits that I think, would have got more people involved. And I think it was just too much focus on sending shots at Drake and like sending messages that to us, I think it just really solidified his own fan base, and I think he could have did a better way of broadening his audience in that platform, which he might not have wanted to, which I respect, but a bore to me. He didn't even perform some of his best songs, and I thought that was a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to each his own. I feel like going back to like you had said an earlier point of yours, that's not the place to take the platform or use it for
I
like
think
the
it's dope
bigger
though.
hitting issues. Well, because
Mhm.
it's like you even said, for the commercials, like done correctly, I feel like it's powerful. So I think, I mean,
100%.
when you're on a stage like that, why not? Especially when we're in a society that is racially divided, that's going through a lot of hurt right now. I feel like why not use the Super Bowl to send a message? I feel like
Let
when
me clean
you're
it up. Let me clean it up a little bit. Let me say it like this then. I think that it was the perfect way because obviously that draw and I think the numbers just came in. I think it was 130 something million. It was a crazy number. I think it's the most viewed Super Bowl. So was it right in terms of why he should have did it? Yes, I agree with him going about doing it the way he did it. Right as a consumer, I was looking just much more for a performance in terms of just enjoying the music, right? But I understand
right.
why you would do it at the biggest stage in the Super Bowl. So it's just much more of a preference. I understand why you have to take that matter if that's really important to you, and it should be important to you, and it should be important to any minority for what he did in that performance. But as a consumer, I was much more looking of like I just want something I could just vibe to. And I think, with him not performing his biggest hits, I thought that was just like you could have mixed both. Like you could have had your message and had your biggest hits as well.
That's I have a question though, because when it comes to rappers, I feel like sometimes they're because I'll give you a good example. So I went to a a Drake concert, and I feel like he's one of the better concerts because he's not just necessarily a rap. Like he can do both.
He's an
But
artist,
like
yeah.
I went to yeah, I went to a Future concert. I'm sorry, no hate. Well, it's kind of hating the worst concert. Like I was like I wasted my money because it was basically like
Mm.
it, some rappers I feel like just aren't necessarily great live. Like
Performers,
I
yeah.
just wouldn't necessarily pay to yeah, it's not a good performance. So it's just like I feel like it's harder for rappers necessarily to have that captivation of like a Beyonce or The Weeknd or Bruno Mars because they're kind of like in a different would you agree with that? Like a different category
Yeah.
almost because it's hard for them to
100%.
captivate an audience.
I'll say this, man. It was a I bring up Twitter too much on here, but I thought the tweet was funny. Like it was like what y'all was expecting to hear for him to get on that stage and start throwing ass. Like what did y'all expect from him, bro? He's a rapper.
Like it's yeah, because I'm like there's
Yeah,
only so much he can
I
do,
get
and
it.
I think that
I get it. I get it. And some people are just not good performers. I'll say this, like my person that I actually don't enjoy his music, but I think he is one of the greatest performers of all time is Travis Scott. Travis Scott is a great
yeah.
performer. Like his sets, they're always hype. He has a very niche audience. Chris Brown, there's a bunch of other great performers like in our generation that you might not just be tapped into their music. But when it comes to rapping, I think it's really hard. Like you're gonna do your
Yeah,
little
it's
rapper hands, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna do this, that, and the third, but there really ain't much to do like in that.
I will
So
say
like,
I would love to see Lil Wayne do a
oh, that would have
halftime
been he
performance. I
should have
know
brought out do you think he should have brought out Wayne?
I mean, he should have brought out somebody because I feel like obviously SZA was great, but it's like
Mhm.
people thought he was going to bring out Taylor Swift since she was there. since they have a song. I don't know, but it was like one of those things that
Nah.
was just like no, she would have been booed. Which can we talk about that for a second? Let her support her man. She gets a lot
Yeah.
of hate. She was so supportive at the Grammys. All this woman want to do is watch her man in peace, and people are booing her.
You know why
Let that
though.
girl live.
So
Let that girl
so I think of
live.
it it's no, I agree, but I think it's not on her. So Taylor is not doing this herself. It's the NFL doing this. And I think she is getting
Yeah,
blowback from how the NFL is choosing to portray her. I don't think she's like paying to me every touchdown. The NFL is actively doing that. So I think she gets
right.
hate for something that she's not doing. But in saying that, she's also associated with the most hated team in America. So I think it's just
And
that.
like,
Like, I think it's double
let's give
edged.
let's give our girl a break. I feel like people are acting like she's Brittany Mahomes, and she's not. We like her, so like let her
Yeah.
live. Okay, I
Respect.
don't know, but
Respect. Respect. Yeah, she does get a lot of unnecessary hate, but I think that's much more in the NFL than anything. But before we wrap this up, man, I do have to ask. We did not see the three-peat yesterday. And there was a lot of conversation going on about the GOAT debate about if Patrick Mahomes got his three-peat, would he overtake Tom? Even though Tom has 7, Patrick has, I think, 3 or 4, I think 4.
yeah,
Would he overtake Tom in the GOAT debate? And with him, he has now lost 2 bad Super Bowls with the Philadelphia one and then the one that he suffered against Tom in a couple Super Bowls back when Tom was with the Bucks. So where do you
right.
think this conversation is with the GOAT debate with Patrick Mahomes taking really 2 bad L's in the Super Bowl? And are we kind of seeing the beginning of the Chiefs dynasty start to end with the Travis Kelsey maybe not, maybe retiring and all these things up in the air about receivers and stuff like that? What is your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes and how the Chiefs move forward into next season?
Well, so when I going back to like when I had said like good that they didn't, and I'm not like rooting against somebody's success because obviously that's
Mhm.
never been done in the Super Bowl. So that would have been great to see. But I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, well, if that happens, like, everybody was saying the whole refs or like, oh, NFL is scripted. Like that would have been the easy, not easy, but it's like, oh, like people were kind of
Convenient.
expecting that to happen. And
Right.
so I feel like when he's presented, like, because at the end of the day, this is adversity, right? And I think the
Mhm.
best athletes are shown with how they respond to adversity. So I feel like you really can't have this conversation until you see how next year shakes out. Because I want to see, and you had mentioned it, like he's faced adversity before, but especially now when you are at the brink of making history, people calling you the Michael Jordan of your sport, like
Mhm.
you were here. And now you kind of get dropped back down. How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to go back to the drawing board? Obviously, it's just like, now it's time off. Teams are going to look completely different. You're going to go into OTAs, you're going to go into training camp, you're going to have different pieces to the puzzle, whoever you get from the draft, like the team's going to look a lot different. How do you build it up from the bottom up again? So I feel like
Mhm.
this year especially will show a lot in testament to his character. And I feel like the conversation of him being the best of the best will boil down to how he responds to losing to the Eagles this Super Bowl, of being just one game shy of making history. So, and if he's able to like overcome that and continue to make history, I mean, he's great. Like I feel like, especially like watching the quarterbacks documentary, I
Mhm.
knew he was a good athlete, but it's just the time that he puts into this outside of practice, outside
Right.
of training the team. I respect that. I respect the hell out of Patrick Mahomes. And
Mhm.
no matter what people say, like the AI gifs of him making out with the refs, like whatever you want, whatever crap you want
Imma
to talk. At the
perpetuate
end of the day,
that. Yeah, Imma do that.
he's
That's
very,
me.
I
That's
think I
me.
probably saw that on your page, but he's
Yeah.
very talented, and I think like the things that I mean, play like there's been multiple plays, and not so much that you saw in the Super Bowl, but throughout the season, there's so many plays where you thought the play was going to be dead, and
Mhm.
he is Patrick Mahomes and throws a touchdown pass. Like so there's so many moments that like he will carry the team on his back. So it'll be interesting, in my opinion, to see how he responds to this adversity. And I don't think I'm willing to make that argument for him yet because I want to see how he responds to the Super Bowl loss.
Yeah, I think he has a obviously I think he's again, I would throw him in top 5 category right now. I think he's on the short list with Rodgers, him, Brady, maybe Montana. And then you can kind of play, Manning. There's so many other names that you could throw in there, but I think with being the first quarterback that 3P, I think you have to have that 1A, 1B conversation. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is only 29, and so
Yeah.
he has a bunch of years left. Tom obviously played into his 40s. I don't know if Mahomes will play into his 40s, but hopefully he will and be able to get that shot of at least either tying Tom with 7 or 8. But I think it was really convenient that they lost in the sense that I think the NFL would have probably got a lot of heat on them, especially remember that
Oh,
first call. The first call of the game, we were like, "Oh my!" I know I was. I'm like, "Oh, here we go again with the
no,
ref
everybody in the room
start."
was like,
There
here
it
we
goes,
go. Here
like,
we go. Yeah.
it's so annoying. So, I think, it'll kinda relax them a little bit, and they not don't have that maybe they don't have that target on their back coming into the obviously, they will, but, like, not as big as it was. I think when you're going for something historic, you're a little bit much more uptight, like, because you know what's on the
Yeah.
line. And so,
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of like you said, I think it's too early to tell. Seeing what Travis Kelce is going to do, I think that does matter. Is he going to retire? Seeing what they're going to do with the O line, they have to draft in the O line. That O line has been really shaky, especially at that left tackle position. And then who they have a lot of key free agents in terms of receivers and some DBs. And I think progressively, more and more, we are seeing these teams retool and get stars. And Kansas City has been without a star since Tyreek. And I don't think
Yeah.
if they keep going about it that way, that it will continue to be the way where they're going to just be a staple in the Super Bowl. I think these teams will just continue to get better and better. And if you don't kind of make those same star additions, I think you will get left behind. They'll still be good, but I think that dominance that we used to will slow down if they don't find that star. So we'll see who they sign in free agency. We'll see who they end up drafting. I think Patrick Mahomes is still poised to being the greatest quarterback of all time. He is still in prime position, regardless of how he lost. But I do think it was kind of reality check of like, yo, Brady still got 7. You know what I'm saying? Now, I know
Yeah.
Tom Brady was up in that booth, like enjoying that because
Like,
he heard them whispers
yeah,
too. Yeah,
he was probably like, okay, young one, like, you're good, but with time.
yeah,
Yeah. It
definitely.
probably, that was probably like, yeah, the full circle moment just for him to be, like in that booth calling that game and just knowing like, okay, I might be out the game on the field, but I'm still him. I'm still Tom Brady.
Still, you could tell. It's so funny because you can tell Tom is like itching to play out there. You
Oh,
know like the
for sure.
yeah you like
There's
the
times like I'm waiting for him to be like, I'm coming out of retirement again. I don't know. It's
that's
just the athlete in
crazy.
but like that competitive nature of just wanting to.
Yeah,
But I mean, sometimes, like he said, the body is telling me no. So
yeah, I understand. It was calling him like like in the Spider-Man movie when the Green Goblin mask is like calling William Defoe and he's just staring at like I feel like the football be calling Tom Brady like that at night and he just sitting
oh,
there
for sure.
like staring at it. But I understand it too. It's a
Because
clip out
he
him where
probably thought
he's
like
yeah.
calling the game. He was probably like, oh, like this will satisfy the itch, and it's just like
Mhm.
nothing will
Ever
probably. Yeah, it's like
ever.
nothing will live up to that. So it's just like it's probably honestly hard for him too. Like, dang, I'm calling a Super Bowl, but I'd love to be playing in one. But I don't know. It's just
Dude,
different.
there's nothing like again running out that tunnel, running on that field, like that adrenaline is like it's not matched. Like even for me, like even on a smaller level, like there's no feeling that I've ever had, even with the accomplishments I've had, that's come close to that. There's nothing like it at all. It can't be replicated. So I understand. But this was a good one, man. We got our first one under our belt. We mentioned our brother Jared. He is a working man, but we'll have him on the next episode. But yeah, it was a really good Super Bowl. Again, the cheating Chiefs end up losing. So again, this was a wonderful day for me. I'm about to tune into the Luka Doncic, his debut game with LeBron. I think this is about to be exciting. So man, we appreciate having Georgia on the podcast team. You'll see a lot more of her when regarding sports. And thank you for tuning in for another episode of Going with the Flow podcast. And as you know, be the way.